Video games are cool, but I'd argue your favorite games are nothing without their trusty Steve. The video game controller. It's something that's often overlooked and taken for granted. Think about it. Entire games are sometimes designed around a specific controller. For a game to be functional and playable, the game and the controller need to work together in perfect sync. You could have an amazing game, but if the controller sucks, might as well just chuck the whole thing out. Okay, I love you to death, but Jesus fucking Christ. Controls are god-awful! That's why the controller is so important. What is a hero without his sword and shield? Dead. What is a bird without its wings? Fucking dead.
Oh, what is Toxic Triforce without his best friend Sakai, eh?
Probably a lot happier. So as a show of appreciation for the old gamepad, today we're going to rank almost every video game controller on a tier list, from worst to best.
Controller? I hardly know her!
To start us off, let's take a look at two of the classics, the NES and Super Nintendo controllers. The original NES controller is as simple as it gets, and sometimes simple is all you need. A solid rectangle base with two buttons labeled A and B, along with a start and select button. Can't forget about the classic D-pad. The simplicity of its design might be its biggest strength, which made for a pretty easy controller even for beginners. It definitely gets the job done.
So it's an A tier.
Well, no. We're actually saving that for the Super Nintendo controller, which is a huge improvement over its older brother. It's got a better shape, more ergonomic design, and most importantly, more buttons. Fun fact, the Super Nintendo controller was the first to slap some shoulder buttons on the back, setting the standard for modern video game controllers. It didn't just change the game, it inspired it. PlayStation, Dreamcast, Xbox, they all took notes. And that's why, in my opinion, the Super Nintendo deserves a higher ranking than the NES controller. So with that all said, the NES goes in B tier, and the SNES sits comfortably in A. Now, there are tons of different iterations of the NES and SNES controller, like the NES Max, NES Advantage, just to name a few. But the last one we'll be looking at is the NES controller, heavily inspired by its Super Nintendo counterpart, the Dogbone. This redesign came later in the Nintendo's life and was clearly inspired by its older, younger sibling, the Super Nintendo controller. Rounded edges, more ergonomic shape, I'm a big fan, and as the name implies, it's shaped like a bone.
That definitely ended up chewed on by someone's dog. I mean, with a name like Dogbone, you're kinda asking for it.
You want it? Huh? You want it, boy? I'm gonna throw it.
Toxic, I'm not a dog. I'm not playing fetch. This is stupid. This proves nothing.
Next up, let's dive into some of the best designed controllers in gaming history. Starting with the original PlayStation 1 controller. Recognize this beauty? Aside from missing the iconic dual thumbsticks, the core design laid the foundation for nearly every PlayStation controller that followed. Then came the legendary DualShock. It's not often a controller design is so well executed that it sticks around for a generation, but Sony nailed it. PS2 and PS3 controllers were practically carbon copies of the original DualShock, and even the PlayStation 4's version just added a touchpad while keeping everything else largely the same. It's a real case of the old, if it ain't broke, don't fix it saying. So we're going to lock all four of these gorgeous controllers into A tier, while the original pre-DualShock PS1 controller gets a solid spot in B. And while we're at it, why don't we assess the PlayStation 5 controller? Folks, in my own personal opinion, they took what was already previously perfect and somehow improved on it times 10. Sony does not miss when it comes to their controllers, let me tell ya. Win after win after win. What I think makes the PlayStation 5 controller so much better than what came before is just how comfortable it feels to hold in your hand. And when we're ranking controllers, comfort is one of the most important factors. Something that Xbox has nailed ever since the 360. There's just so many great things about the PlayStation 5 controller. It took its predecessor's touchpad and light bar, but added more key features like its haptic feedback and adaptive triggers. For example, let's say you're playing Horizon Forbidden West, and you press the left trigger to draw your bow. You can feel the tension and weight of the string. It simulates the feeling of firing a gun, hitting the brakes. Gee, one real example would be from Spider-Man 2. There's a section where you search for Sandman's memories, which are trapped inside these glowing crystals. To unlock the memory, you have to tear the crystal apart, and that was one of my first real experiences with this feature. I was honestly blown away. It genuinely felt like I was cracking open a chunk of rock. I know, look, it sounds kind of silly, but once you've experienced it for yourself, you'll see exactly what I mean. It's incredibly immersive. But aside from all that, there's a built-in microphone, button layout customization options. Honestly, this is the all-you-could-need controller, and that's why this is our first controller so far to be placed in S tier.
Oh, I'll show you some haptic feedback.
Ow, 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 fucking stop, what the hell, stop. What the hell was that for?
Well, did you feel it?
Yeah, it really hurt.
Huh. That must be enough to put me in S tier then.
That is one chunky boy right there. It's what the doctor delivering me said moments after I was born. Well, I got some news for you, Doc. It's called Big Boned. And this big boned controller is the infamous original Xbox GamePad, aka the Duke. This is the first ever Microsoft controller for the first ever Xbox. Can you tell? Contrary to popular belief, the size of the Duke wasn't designed to accommodate giant, monstrous American hands, but instead was simply the result of a larger than expected circuit board. The perception of the Duke controller is a mixed bag. Some people actually found it comfortable to hold, while others criticized it for its bulk and awkwardness. Due to the negative feedback it received, it was quickly replaced by the also familiar Xbox S controller, which was a lot smaller and to many was a massive improvement. It's not an awful controller, but due to its obvious size problem and issues like stick drift, we're gonna have to put this big boy in C tier and its much smaller friend in B tier. Speaking of giants,
I smell
the Sega Saturn 3D controller, another absolute chunkster. This thing was released midway through the Saturn's life cycle, designed specifically for games like Nights into Dreams, which made heavy use of the analog thumbstick and the shoulder buttons for precise control. Now, it's weird that Sega's first 3D console shipped with a controller without any thumbsticks. Like, what were they thinking? Okay, I just looked it up. Apparently, analog sticks weren't super common at the time, so fair enough. But surprise, the 3D controller actually feels good. When compared to its successor, the Dreamcast controller, it somehow felt like a leap forward, not back. For many, the Dreamcast controller had buttons that hurt your fingers, a delicate D-pad, cheap plastic, and a slippery joystick. And the irony is that Sega's first 3D controller turned out better than their last. But then again, it's a mixed bag. Some folks really like the Dreamcast controller, but from personal experience, I can't say the same. So here's our ranking. Sega Saturn 3D controller, C tier. Dreamcast controller, D tier. The original Saturn controller, while it was great for 2D games, it lacked a joystick, D tier. Next up, let's talk about the Xbox family of controllers, specifically from the 360 era through the Series X. Much like the PlayStation, Microsoft nailed the design early on with the Xbox 360 controller, and they've only refined it since. With firm, comfortable grips and intuitive button placement, it was a massive leap forward from the bulky Duke. In fact, these designs are so beloved, many gamers consider them the definitive game controller. On a side note though, the 360 had a few issues, like slippery thumbsticks, D-pad issues, and connection problems among a handful of folks, which is why it's going in A tier instead of S. But the rest of these absolutely fantastic controllers are taking a deserved seat in S tier. Speaking of Xbox, let's jump right into talking about the infamous Xbox Kinect. Originally developed as a motion controller like Nintendo's Wiimote and PlayStation Move, but then later transitioned towards a camera that was capable of mapping a human body and sensing hand motions, labeled the next big thing for video games. And upon its 360 release, which was kinda late in the console's life, it garnered mostly positive reception, with occasional critiques of privacy concerns considering the fact that the Kinect always had to be powered on for the Xbox One, which led to the Xbox One Kinect failing, due to a lot of people feeling as if it was forced onto the consumer. But this isn't a history lesson, it's a ranking video. How do I feel about the Kinect? Well, honestly, it's a fine accessory. Nothing super mind-blowing, but it was fun, especially when playing with a lot of people. I definitely put it on par with Sony and Nintendo's counterparts, although the majority of games developed for the Kinect were casual, family-oriented titles. Other than that, it was kind of useless. A good product for sure, but it wasn't able to hit its full potential. I put it in C tier. While we're talking about motion tracking devices, let's talk about the iconic Wiimote. Why don't you take it away, Sock Guy? I know how much you adore the Wii.
The old reliable Nintendo Wiimote. She needs no introduction, and I'm sure a lot of you watching have some good memories of this beauty.
Or some bad ones.
Nintendo squeezed every ounce of fun and usability out of this sucker. Wii Sports is a prime example, but mostly every game on the Wii was made with this one-handed wonder in mind.
One-handed wonder.
And don't even get me started on versatility. You can play her upright, sideways, upside down, inside out. Okay, scratch those last two, but you get what I'm saying? The possibilities are endless! We got the Wii Wheel, Wii Zapper, Wii Paddle, Wii Golf Club, Wii Bow, Wii Racket, and all of these! The Wiimote made for some pretty great experiences, and the nunchuck accessory that added the thumbstick made it that much better.
loving the enthusiasm. But, some of us actually enjoy playing our games without flailing our arms like we're fighting off invisible bees. Look, I'll admit it, if I had the option, I was reaching for the GameCube controller every single time. The Wiimote was cool, innovative even, but I don't want to be forced to use it every time I sit down to play, and unfortunately that was the case with a lot of Wii games. Case in point, The Legend of Zelda Skyward Sword. I adored that game, but man, having to play it with the Wiimote and nunchuck felt like a workout session disguised as a fantasy adventure. My only real gripe with the game was being locked into motion controls. Thankfully, the Switch remaster fixed that and gave us traditional controls, because sometimes I just want to save Hyrule without doing cardio, okay?
That is because you are fat and lazy. We're putting it in A tier.
Okay, hold your horses. This is my list. Can we at least compromise?
No.
Jeez. We're not done with motion controls just yet. We still need to talk about the PlayStation Move. Much like the Kinect, Sony decided to take a swing at what Nintendo had already done with the Wiimote. It's clear that the Wii and its motion controls were incredibly influential. But the question lies, did it get it right? Well, I'd say so. Aside from looking like a woman's... It's on par with the Wiimote in almost every way, even having attachable accessories like the Wiimote. Hell, the Move also had its own version of the nunchuck called the Navigation. Some might say that it was a blatant copy and paste, and while that may be the case, that doesn't make it a bad controller. It also wasn't an exact one-to-one either. It's tons more comfortable to hold than the competition, and instead of a sensor bar of the Wii, the Move uses a camera to track this glowing ball at the top. Squishy. Now, while it did see some success, it never really came close to the Wiimote. I mean, yeah, there were a handful of games that worked with it, but it wasn't until 2016, 6 whole years later, that it finally found its newfound calling with PlayStation VR. These days, the PlayStation Move is pretty much the go-to controller for VR games on both the PS4 and PS5. So to sum up this little silly guy, it actually does what the Kinect couldn't. It found its potential. Now, not quite as well as the Wiimote, but honestly pretty damn close. That's why we're putting the PlayStation Move right next to the Wiimote in B tier.
Toxic, do we need to go to the hospital?
Oh, come on. You don't tell me you did what I think you did. Did you swallow the PS Move ball?
I did. Oh.
Sock guy, why?
And once they get this thing out of me, we need to talk to a lawyer. Because making a controller that looks exactly like a lollipop? Ooh, that's a lawsuit waiting to happen.
All right. Go grab the scissors and a stitching needle. We sunk our entire savings into buying all these damn controllers for this video. No way we can afford a hospital bill.
Oh, cool. Yippee, DIY surgery.
I had the strangest dream last night. Just hear me out. Okay, this one's a little goofy. There was this screen, tablet size, and on the sides, 2 Wiimotes. Wait a second, hold on. What? That wasn't a dream. That was just the Switch joycons, baby. Okay, now, they aren't just Wiimotes slapped onto a screen, but there were definitely a lot of Wiimote-esque features and similarities. For Nintendo's first ever hybrid handheld home console, that's a mouthful. These little guys more than get the job done. They're super versatile, just like the Wiimote, offering tons of different playstyles, which is honestly really cool. On top of that, detaching the Joy-Cons and just kicking back with your arms stretched out is weirdly relaxing. The buttons feel good, the controls are responsive, and you get accurate motion tracking without a camera or sensor bar. Honestly, there's not much to complain about. Now that's the good ending. Too bad we're stuck in the bargain bin version of the timeline. Don't get me wrong, everything I've said is true. It's mostly a great controller.
No, don't say it!
Joy-Con drift.
Oh.
A problem that's been terrorizing Switch owners since day one. What to do about this? Well, for a while, Nintendo tried gaslighting us into believing that Joy-Con drift just didn't exist. What is this?
No, there's no drift. It's all in your head.
Oh. Eventually, they finally admitted it, and now you're able to send your Joy-Cons indirectly to Doug Bowser himself to get them fixed. And to be fair, things did get better from there. Not perfect, but better. So aside from that one major problem, I'd say Joy-Cons did a pretty swell job overall. That's why they're getting their own special place on the tier list, the B.5 tier. Listen, Joy-Con drift caused me great pain. I also enjoy the Switch tons. So I can't make my mind up. That is my explanation. And now, the Switch 2 Joy-Cons. They've only been out for 8 days as of writing this, and while I haven't tried them yet, a few friends grabbed them day one. So I asked them for their thoughts. Special thanks to Chad of Paper Tunes and the homie Tumor. The verdict? They're like upgraded OG Joy-Cons. Same functionality, but better. Biggest change is the magnetic snap-on design instead of the old slide rails. Plus, a sleek matte finish that makes them feel way less like toys. Slightly bigger, which was a positive long-coming change, and extra C button activating the game chat feature, aka a Discord VC. The only real complaints? Well, one, they currently only come in one single color, unlike the more colorful originals. But that will probably change soon. And two, a few Switch 2 users have reported drift right out of the box, but not enough to make Sock Guy faint again. So overall, a clear upgrade. A tier for you.
Hey, Toxic, you sure you stitched me up right? Feeling a little wheezy.
Welcome to Controller or Some Other Shit, the game where we show a mysterious silhouette and you've got to guess, is it a legit video game controller or just some random bullshit? Are you ready, Sock Guy?
Guess so.
Alright, Sock Guy, are these controllers or some other shit? You have 1 minute to respond.
Okay. The left one is definitely the Donkey Kong bongos. I know Donkey Kong. That's a controller. But the one on the right... That's just a freaking chainsaw. No ways. Some other shit.
Let's find out. Sorry, but both of these are actual video game controllers.
Oh man, that sucks. Can you please take me to the fucking hospital?
This will be a pretty quick segment because, well, the DK Bongos were made specifically for a small handful of Donkey Kong games. Jungle Beat, Donkey Konga 1, 2, and Japan's exclusive Donkey Konga 3. Its function? Exactly as the name implies. It's a pair of freaking bongos. That's it. No surprises. Just some good old rhythmic slapping. They serve their purpose, and they serve it well. DK Bongos are banging their way into solid B tier. But as for the Resident Evil 4 chainsaw developed by Newbie Tech, that thing can buy you noose, and while they're at it, a chair too. Not explaining, not elaborating, doesn't deserve it. It does, however, deserve this spot in F tier though. I've always had a soft spot for the Wii U. This console got way more hate than it ever really deserved. I mean, looking back, it was basically a prototype of the Switch, just without the joycons or full portability. It had some truly fantastic games: Splatoon, Breath of the Wild, Hyrule Warriors, Yoshi's Woolly World, Mario Kart 8, and Super Smash Bros., a lot of which eventually made their way to the Switch. The Wii U GamePad was the cherry on top, at least for me. There was just something cool about being able to keep playing even if someone else was using the TV. It had a camera, latency was surprisingly never an issue, and the buttons felt great. The whole thing felt ahead of its time. I've got no real complaints, just fond memories. The only drawback is that GamePad got broke. Good luck replacing it without selling a kidney. All things considered, it earns a well-deserved spot in B tier. The Nintendo DS is simply simple. A single D-pad, 2 shoulder buttons on the back, and the classic A, B, X, and Y buttons, plus a start and select button. In fact, it's incredibly similar to the Game Boy Advance that came before it, just with 2 extra face buttons. Honestly, it might make even more sense to compare it to the Super Nintendo controller. But what really made the DS stand out at the time was its touchscreen and stylus features. For many, the DS was their first experience with touch-based technology. This predates the widespread use of touchscreen smartphones, so it was super ahead of its time. The only problem you occasionally face is the awkward feeling you'll be having trying to play games like Mario 64 DS with the D-pad. But most of the DS library was suited for the gamepad, so that problem was rarely ever an issue. And while we're at it, let's talk about the DSi. We're not focusing on the console itself in this video, just the gamepad. Now, if we were talking about the console as a whole, the DSi would have blown the original DS out of the water in almost every way. But in terms of button layout and overall functionality, it's basically a carbon copy of the original DS. Both of these handhelds are going in B tier. This video is going on way too long. The old tank is running on low. I need a pick-me-up. Hey, Sock Guy, do something funny to make me and the viewer laugh.
You got it!
In a lot of ways, the 3DS gamepad is almost identical to its forefathers, while also being an improvement. Now with the D-pad lowered a tad and an additional analog stick, which personally I think feels great, it fits the imprint of my thumb perfectly. It definitely got the comfort factor down. That's not all though, it also added a home button, moved the select and start buttons to the bottom of the screen, and of course the 3D switch at the side of the top screen. I didn't really use that feature much, but hey, it's there. Anyways, I think it both feels and looks a lot more sleek, especially with that glossy coat. It's almost the perfect handheld controller pre-switch. Now, the one thing it unfortunately lacked was a secondary joystick. I mean, if you're gonna market this as the 3D handheld, 3DS in the name, you need to at least have 2 joysticks, right? Preferably for games like Smash. Nintendo did release an accessory called the Circle Pad Pro, which did its job somewhat well, but regardless, the lack of a second one didn't really cause that much issue. However, the new Nintendo 3DS finally added a second analog stick. Well, kind of, in the form of the C-stick.
I like to call it the 3DS click stick.
Never say that again. It's definitely a step up from the base 3DS, just a small one, but still, A tier for you as well. My beloved, a beacon of light through the darkest of nights, my one and only Nintendo GameCube controller. I cannot stress enough how much I love this controller. In fact, I mentioned it earlier. Look, I'll admit it, if I had the option, I was reaching for the GameCube controller every single time. It might just be the greatest video game controller of all time. Everything about you, my love, is perfect. Not a single button or wire out of place. Oh man, oh baby.
Okay, chill out. It's getting weird.
It's definitely the most comfortable controller I've ever held in my hands. The button layout is perfect for Nintendo-styled games, with every single button being uniquely shaped and sized in the right spot. Oh, and let's not forget about the colors. Oh, mama, you're a sight for sore eyes, let me tell you. Don't even get me started on the button clicks. I'm fully convinced that this thing is a divine relic handcrafted by the gods themselves specifically to play video games. And by some wild cosmic accident, it just fell from the heavens into the hands of mere mortals. Power we were never meant to wield.
Damn, bro, I don't think it's healthy to be this emotionally attached to a video game controller.
Shut up! Now, this one gets a lot of hate. Keep in mind that Nintendo 64 wasn't just a cool console, it revolutionized 3D gaming as a whole. So it makes sense that as one of the first 3D systems, it came with a controller design that was, let's just say, a little untraditional. Nintendo was experimenting, seeing what worked and what didn't, and honestly, I think they handled it pretty well. The N64 controller was the first to feature a control stick as a main input, and it offered multiple grip styles depending on the game, like this, and this. The way you held it could change completely depending on what you were playing. I think that's kind of cool. It was all about the game and your personal preference. And while it looks weird and awkward, honestly, it's not that bad to hold. It's a pretty decent gamepad in my opinion. That said, it wasn't without its issues. The control stick wore out super easily. Shout out to Mario Party blisters. With its clunky design and how poorly it holds up in the modern gaming era, we're gonna have to drop the N64 controller and B tier. And finally, we arrive at what many consider the first ever video game controller. Arguably, the most precise input method ever created, the keyboard and mouse. To some, it might just look like standard office equipment, but for countless gamers, it's the gold standard. Now, I'm not much of a PC gamer myself, but I'd be lying if I said the keyboard and mouse didn't earn their spot at the top. Sure, they weren't originally made for gaming, but over time, they've become absolutely essential in the gaming world. From lightning-fast reflexes in shooters to intricate commands and strategy games, the keyboard and mouse combos remain one of the most versatile and effective setups in all of gaming. I myself prefer the classic controller instead, but keyboard and mouse definitely take the cake regardless. A solid S, no question about it.
Complete!
Toxic, where was the E tier?
E tier?
Yeah, E tier. You know, A, B, C, D, E!
Oh, huh. Guess I forgot.
Well, I'm gonna put you in E tier.
Why?
E for everything you've said is bullshit!
Hey folks, thanks for watching. This video took forever to make, and it's probably the longest one I've done in a while, so I really hope you enjoyed it. If you did, a great way to show that is by hitting the like button, dropping a comment, and subscribing to the channel. It helps me out a lot, and lets me know that you want more of these longer, in-depth videos in the future. Seriously, thank you again, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye for now!